So let's have a look at this. This is on page 158. We're going to read, first of all, about the author, Dr. Fu-Kiau Bunseki. So we read, Dr. Fu-Kiau Bunseki is one of the most distinguished and insightful scholars of African culture. Born in Manyanga, Congo, he was educated in both Western and African systems of thought. He is initiated into 3 traditional secret societies, quote unquote, Lemba, Khimba, and Kimpasi. These secret societies, quote unquote, are in reality indigenous educational institutions. Lemba is of particular relevance because it is the foundation for numerous African-based religions and practices in the Americas, including Palo Mayombe in Cuba, Vodou Petro in Haiti, and Candomble Angola in Brazil, brought about through the transport of Central Africa's indigenous people to the New World during the slave trade. While teaching in the city of Kinshasa, capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Dr. Fu-Kiau decided to return to his home, Manyanga, located in the countryside. There, he founded the Luyalungunu Lwakumbansi Institute, a pioneering education center dedicated to exploring and documenting traditional Congo culture. His research and development work at the Institute laid bare the African philosophy of ancient Bantu educational institutions, which has had a significant effect on Western scholars, including Doctors Robert F. Thompson, John M. Jansen, and Wyatt McGaffey. Essentially, the cultural philosophy espoused by President Mobutu of Zaire, on which he firmly established his national program of authenticity, was based on the works of Fu-Kiau. Okay, that's interesting. So Mobutu, okay, this book was written in 2001. Mobutu might still even have been alive at that time, but not sure if that's something that you should be shouting off the rooftops that Mobutu Seko, what was his name? President Mobutu Seko Seko, whatever his name was influenced by Bunseki Fu-Kiau. Okay, but anyway. Fu-Kiau came to the United States to continue his education and to educate Americans, particularly African Americans, about the complexity and depth of African philosophy. Since his arrival, he has done precisely that by means of various lectures and presentations. He has published numerous books and articles, including Congo Cosmology, Komina, a Congo-based tradition in the New World, Kindezi, the Congo art of babysitting, which we read a couple of weeks ago, and Self-Healing Power and Therapy, Old Teachings from Africa. He currently resides, so this is written in 2001, he currently resides in Boston, where he works as a director of library services at the Suffolk County House of Correction, and as visiting lecturer at the Tufts University Department of Anthropology and Sociology. He has also instituted 2 unique courses at the Suffolk County House of Correction: The Jail That Changed My Life and The African World and Culture. These courses are currently being turned into manuscripts for publication. Dr. Fu-Kiau's academic background includes degrees in the areas of cultural anthropology, a BA, school administration, a master's in education, library science, and educational and community development. Wow, so he's got a BA, a master's in education, a master's in science, and a PhD. Oh, he had at this point, probably had more. An insightful scholar with a profound knowledge of Central African philosophy and traditions, he is also a serious and committed educator with a wealth of experience, both in Africa and the United States. Dr. Fu-Kiau is a person of character dedicated to the betterment of humankind through traditional African ideas and means. So that's who we're dealing with here when we're talking about Dr. Fu-Kiau Bunseki, full name Kimbwandende Fu-Kiau Bunseki. All right. So, like I said, the copyright on this book is 2001, written in 2001. This is the first edition of the book. And yeah, let's get into it. Let's have a look at the chapters. How many chapters we've got here? We have 4 chapters in total, and the whole book is 127 pages. So I imagine this is going to be a book that's going to take us probably 4 or 5 sessions to properly, absorb the wisdom from it. So let's get into it. So on page, right at the beginning, we have something written in Kikongo. What I might do is not try and read all the Kikongo bits, because I'll probably butcher the language. Well, let me give it a go. So there's one here. It says, Diadinza Congo Kandongila, Mono ikadi kia dingo dingo, and in brackets it says Kwenda Vutukisa, Kimzungindila, Didi Dia Ngolo Zanzingila, Ngiana Kadi Yateka, Kala Ye Kalulula ya Ngina Vutuka Kala Ye Kalulula, which means, here is what the Congolese cosmology taught me. I am going and coming back around the center of vital forces. I am because I was and re-was before, and that I will be and re-be again. So let's get into it. Shout out to you, William Webster. Glad you were able to find the melanin video. If you're watching on YouTube, then make sure you like the video. If you're watching on Insta, do like the video as well. Bust a like, bust a share, and we'll get into it. So, introduction to the first edition. And we see a word. I see a word here which looks much like a word in my language. So that word there is, I don't know if you can see it there, Malembe. Which means peace, because in my language, in the Lugisu language, it's mulembe. That's the basic greeting when you meet someone. You say mulembe, mulembe. It's like peace, peace. So yeah, mulembe. This work was written for my seminar discussions at Yale University in 1980. I also wanted it to be a book for everyone, which is why I decided to call it the African Book Without Title. If either a lawyer, an anthropologist, a philosopher, an educator, a politician, a linguist, a diplomat, a therapist, or an ordinary man can find in this work anything that may be useful to their field, then let them call the book the way they want it to be called in order to fit into their field. Africans, including those of African descent, must love the study of their languages. Ashe. If they wish to talk honestly about themselves and about what they are. For all systems codes of their society are coded in these languages. These languages should be studied and used as languages of instruction in order to prove their scientific capacity. To study the language of the most important process of learning, the art of coding and decoding social systems of human society in the world. To study language is the most important process of learning, the art of coding and decoding social systems of human society in the world. Absolutely. Learning is a cumulative process of coding and decoding cultures. Therefore, it is necessary to study the language that expresses these cultures. One also has to learn the art of tying or coding in order to understand the opposite side of that art, how to untie and decode. Only one who understands the codes of their social and conceptual systems can decode them for the outside world. This Congo proverb or principle does state a community's knots or codes are decoded by its members. Variant systems codes are only decoded by their members. All through this book, by the way, every single section of this book, every single page I'm reading, whenever I read a section, there's can you see it? Bunseki Fu-Kiau also puts the Kikongo version of what's been written in English. So it's quite interesting to see actually the various different Congolese Kikongo versions of the English that he's saying. But anyway, the basic point he's saying is that language is absolutely key to being able to code, to understand a culture and a people, and also it's also important in order to be able to unravel and to decode a culture. Africanists and all African wisdom lovers likewise, must be interested in the study of African languages in order to avoid yesterday's blunders. That's an interesting point. Let's have a look here. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's an interesting point. He's saying that we need to understand African languages so that we can learn from our mistakes. That's what I was talking about at the top of the show, which is the Sankofa, the importance of learning from the past, learn from the past, pick from the past what we can use going forward. How can someone be a true Africanist if they are not able to speak a single African language? And full disclosure, I only speak a little bit of, really, only a little bit of one African language, which is Kiswahili. I've been trying to learn that language for a long time, but because I've not really ever been consistent, I'm still at a kind of probably beginner/intermediate level. I could probably get by, you know, when I finally do go to Kenya or Tanzania, I could get by, but you know, I'm not an expert, but I am learning. But the point there is that if you don't speak an African language, how can you really call yourself an Africanist? You know, how could he or she represent a system they dare not to truly taste and feel, i.e., by understanding the language? To awakening Africans, such scholars are very dangerous for Africa because they negatively lead the most dangerous exploitation of man by man, the intellectual exploitation. They impose themselves upon others by interpreting negatively other people's ideas, i.e., what they call their raw materials or their original work. Moreover, these ideas are badly understood since they are harvested in a hurry, and all kinds of cultural misrepresentation and fantasies occur in the process of filling in the blanks. And that's I think what Fu-Kiau is getting at there is something that Oyeronke Oyewumi talked a lot about in her book, The Invention of Women, which is that oftentimes people come to a culture or a people group that they're claiming to study, claiming to want to understand, but they're not bothered to learn the language of these particular people. And so if you don't know the language of particular people, you're not going to really have any real insight into that people's culture, that people's way of life, that people's philosophy. And so you're going to do a great violence to that people in your claims that you're going to make about that culture, because you're going to impose your own biases, you're going to impose your own frame of reference, your own worldview onto them, rather than letting them explain their worldview through their language and through their culture. Food tastes good only if one can taste and feel the mind and heart of the person who cooked it. This applies to cultures as well. A systematic understanding, therefore, is possible only if one can taste and feel the radiation beauty of the language that generates that culture. A work, a teaching, a gift, a laugh, or an explanation from a violent and bloody mind has a great impact on its consumer. We are what we consume, learn, hear, see, and feel. Ain't that the truth? We feel waves and vibrations and radiations because we ourselves produce waves and radiations and vibrations. We are sensitive to heat, cold, and electricity only because we ourselves, as organisms, produce heat, cold, and electricity. The American statesman who said that USA citizens must study foreign languages for national security was not mistaken. One has to agree that our present conceptual way of coding and decoding, or tying and untying social and systematic codes of alien cultures, is the cause of insecurity and tensions in the world today. A person, by the negative label one sticks on other people, blinds and sinks oneself. And this is the last paragraph of the introduction. The African book without title shows how strong and deep-rooted the concept of coding and decoding, and in Kikongo that's Kangaye Kutula Makolo, was and still is throughout life in the African concepts. For those interested in the study of African thought and systems, we also recommend the reading of Kunenga and Makuku Matatu. So this introduction was written by Bunseki Fu-Kiau in Cambridge in 1980. So wow, this book clearly originates over 40 years ago and counting. So yeah, that was the first edition introduction. Then we got the introduction to the second edition, which is just a couple of pages. This introduction was written in 1998, in 2000. So let's have a look at this. It says, a few words to the second edition. 21 years ago, this study was printed. Okay, there we go. 21 years ago, this study was printed to serve as a stepping ground to my class discussions at Yale University. Since its publication, many outside of the classroom wanted to have a copy of African Book Without Title, but it was not available. So clearly the original title of this book was African Book Without Title. Friends asked to review the materials and expand the book for a new edition. This was not possible because each time I tried to do so, I continued to push work off to the next day. Meanwhile, demands and requests for the book accumulated. Finally, I decided to review the materials of the study for a second edition, which we are happy to present to you now under a new title, African Cosmology of the Bantu-Kongo, Principles of Life and Living. Is there any difference in form and content between this edition and the first? My answer to that question will be yes, indeed. Its content was revised and expanded where it was possible. This expansion included a brief description of the Bantu-Kongo concept of mapping the universe, or Kayangele Luyalungunu, and a new chapter on the V, one of the most secret aspects of the Bantu teaching amongst the Kongo people. By reviewing and expanding the old edition, we only had one desire in mind, to see many people walk into this new edition, not only with fingers and eyes, but with both their ears probably. Oh, sorry. With both their minds and hearts, and take it as one of the basic tools to understand the scientific structures of the development of old African traditional scholarship and its ancient schools. African cosmology of the Bantu-Kongo is not a collection of some data for some academic exercise, which usually consists of transferring bones from one graveyard to another. Transferring bones from one graveyard to another. It is a mound of raw materials that require sharp tools and trained minds to work with for individual societal and or academic interests. One has to see it and accept it as a small but not unimportant piece being added upon our universal accumulative experience of knowing. Its completion was not simple. Behind its present form stands many close and distant collaborators, of whom I will not hesitate to mention some with all my gratitude. Danny Dawson, who pushed so hard to see this book revised and expanded for a second edition. His advice and support were immeasurable. Franklin Stevenson, who skillfully illustrated this edition. Robert Marriott, Lisa Jones, and Sarah Kahn were essential to the editing process. And last but not least, Catherine Vatuoni, who volunteered not only to read, but edit and type the revised work. Anthony Ferreira and my publishers Roger and Rudolph Francis, Athelia Henrietta Press, publishing in the name of Orun Miller. Oh, well, that's one of the Yoruba Orishas. Finally, my profound gratitude to all my masters, dead and alive, who knew how to open my eyes to this rich, traditional African scholarship that still flourishes in the wilderness of the minds of the African living libraries. So that was written by Bunseki Fu-Kiau in Boston in June 1998 to 2000. So getting us a little bit more up to date, but still 20 years ago, the second edition was published. So shout out to everyone.